Hello everyone, and for this week's Enigma Box rundown, I decided I would do something a bit different and do a full video where I read through the rundown. Yes, because I apparently decided, because even though I am terrible at any sort of public speaking, even when it's just recording a rudimentary one-take, no-edit video like this, I am... and I forgot what I was even trying to say. Oh, that doesn't make it quite well, but yes, I wrote everything down and I'm mostly just going to be reading from it, while occasionally making flubbs like I have been doing, but I don't care. Only one take. I don't have any more time for that, because my parents are going to be home soon. Anyways, okay, rundown. May 22nd through May 28th. Here's to 10 more years. We're going to discuss how happy I am that Enigma Box has lasted for a full decade, the North American game industry's first union, topical politics, and insights into my hometown. Yes, I decided that this one I should read out loud. This wasn't a good idea. I know it wasn't, but I'm still doing it anyways. I'm already past a minute, so I must be committed to it. Let's continue. Enigma Box has now officially been around for over 10 years. In that time, the site has amassed over 1.1 million views from over 295,000 visitors across 1,290 posts containing just barely over 3 million words. I have put an incalculable amount of time into Enigma Box, spending the core of my young adulthood making content for the site. And while I might regret at specific things, as I have made thousands of mistakes and said hundreds of stupid things, I do not regret the thousands of hours I placed into Enigma Box, because in that time the site has become my creative outlet, a place that I can truly and fully call my own, and it is something that I have been doing for so long that I feel confident in saying that Enigma Box will continue for as long as possible, or at the very least another 10 years. And I want to thank each and every one of you reading this or watching this video, I suppose. I did not originally write this with the video in mind. This is something I impulsively decided, as should be very evident. Anyways, I want to thank every one of you for reading this and letting me into your life, even if it was only for a moment. Even if it was to read one review or grab a flowchart, I am grateful that I have been able to create something that people care about in some way. As I remember when I was putting out things where I was lucky to get any views, seriously, in 2012, 2013, there were some things that got 0 clicks at all. Not that I blame anyone for that, because I put out garbage back then. I want to thank the developers of Student Transfer and Press Switch for giving me a niche that I could, to some degree, service with my work. I want to thank my Indonesian readers because, for some reason, you're number 2 in terms of Enigma Box readership, and the phone is ringing, but I'm not going to answer that because I'm doing a video. Okay, yes, I want to thank my Indonesian readers because you're number 2 in terms of Enigma Box readership, and I want to thank anybody who has left a comment, because you all remind me that real, flesh and bone human beings actually read my stuff, which is rather scary. Okay, so, acquisition news. No acquisition news this week, other than Take-Two's acquisition. Zynga has been completed. Good for them, except not good for anyone else. The acquisition is bad, and I was going to scroll this down as that kind of effect, but then I forgot. For the past few years, there has been a major push for unionization across the games industry, and for good reason. Despite being a thriving and incredibly successful industry, game developers are routinely treated like garbage by those who employ them. Let's see. Management frequently sets unrealistic deadlines that force developers to crunch. Jobs are notoriously insecure, as developers are routinely laid off after completing projects, and it is considered the norm for workers to be treated as if they are disposable, when there's no such thing as a disposable worker in a skill-based position. That's a fact, and believe it. I love the fact that it's crap. The juxtaposition makes it fun. But back in January, the quality assurance testers at Raven Software, one of Activision Blizzard's many Call of Duty studios, fought against this trend by launching an effort to unionize and demand better conditions from their multi-billion-dollar taskmasters. Now, after several months of progress, the QA testers have won their bid to become a union, and unless an objection is filed by May 31st, then the union will become official. It should be great news. Meaning that unless something goes very wrong, this will mark the establishment of the first union of video game developers in North America, which I hope inspires both a precedent and trend for the industry to follow. Being nice is just nice. And because I am sick of hearing about rampant abuse throughout the industry and believe that a union is the best way to force publishers and developers to behave themselves. Maybe I should have said management instead of developers, but I'm not going to edit it now. I'm too lazy for that. Okay, so now to get serious, because of course I decided to talk about politics on the Gastronomic site, even though, well, everything's political. Let's just talk about unionization. Unionization is incredibly political. Okay. Now, I did not spot any other particularly noteworthy stories this week, presumably because of two factors. A lot of companies are holding off on major announcements until sometime, early to mid-June, during the void that E3 previously occupied. Actually, it's far better if I have the notes up like this and read off of them, because then I just need to turn my head slightly instead of moving up and down and possibly showing the whites of my eyes, which is something that I guess is super disrespectful. I do not consciously do that. I am sorry. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. I know my hair is a bit long and unkempt. Okay, what was I talking about? Okay. A lot of companies are holding off on major announcement until sometime in early to mid-June during the void that E3 previously occupied. And secondly, the PR cycle for most things was probably stalled after the recent school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which I'm probably mispronouncing, and which is a developing story, one that seems to be getting worse and worse by the day, and something that I don't have much to say beyond the usual leftward talking points. Alright, if I do it that way, then I block the screen. I should have the notes here. Okay, gun control should be stricter, as there is no good reason why any American citizen should own a functional assault weapon. Unless you plan on having a militia, but I don't consider that a good reason. That people should remain angry about how routine these school shootings are, as anger is one of the best tools to spur meaningful change. And while I think it is a tad gauche to just say ACEAB, all cops are bastards / bad, the profession is rampant with people who abuse or misuse their power. And I don't think that you can really argue that, especially with instances like this being so damn common. Well, maybe not specifically like this, but where cops don't put themselves in danger and put other people in danger. I didn't do much research into that front, but focus on the notes, Natalie, you dumb. This event initially caused a minor resurgence in the American political circus. I don't know if that's the term people actually use. Which is something that I have been deeply exhausted by over the past few months, as bad things keep happening. Trans people are under constant assault by state governments who desire systematic genocide. I'm trans, by the way. Abortion and reproductive rights are at risk of being shattered, and by terrorists are still given the benefit of the doubt by people whose value systems lack any logical or thematic cohesion greater than white nationalism. Yeah, I'm going in for the jugular with that crap. Something that I have been trying to understand over the past 5 or so years is how people who don't want people like me to exist think the way they do, what drives their hatred, and why they don't have the same basic kindergarten-ass values that I have held all my life. Well, okay, that's not before kindergarten, but the point still stands. The kindergarten has values. That you should try to be nice and get along with people. The fact that people are and look different and should be celebrated. That safety, including healthcare, is important. That sharing welfare is good, and that you should apologize when you hurt someone, either physically or emotionally, and explain why you did the thing, and explain why the thing you did was a bad thing. Yeah, this is incredibly inappropriate. But whatever. One take. These people don't seem to have learned or internalized these values. Instead, they adopt a belief system that lies somewhere between interpreted Christian values and outright Nazism. I understand that people are and can be radicalized through misinformation and by offering them a sense of community, because I watch a lot of video essays and crap. But I do not understand how they don't have something in the brain that goes off when they hear someone preaching for literal or systematic genocide. I guess my problem is twofold. One, I assume that people are a lot more caring and rational than they often are. I like to think the best in people, and I struggle to believe that people would do bad things without having a sensible reason supporting their actions. And I consider I wrote this note that I would have to read it, but I didn't care about my future self, so I needed to read it. And I consider, because it makes my genitals feel good, to be a sensible reason. By the way, 2, I was probably raised in an environment different than most other U.S. citizens, which affects my ability to view what a normal upbringing is like in America. I have not mentioned this outside of one really bad 2013 review of a Little King Story, the Wii game. I love that game, by the way, incredibly charming. But I have lived in Skokie, Illinois for my entire life. It is the northern Chicago suburb that's probably best known for its running with Nazis. Okay, in the mid-1970s, a neo-Nazi group was attempting to march into Skokie. Why Skokie? Well, Skokie's population at the time was estimated to be at 70,000 people, which is a lot for a village, and why it earned a reputation as the largest village in either the world or in America. I don't remember which. Population of 70,000 with a Jewish population of over 40,000 and about 7,000 Holocaust survivors. 7,000 Holocaust survivors, 70,000 people, that's 10%. That's a lot. As you can imagine, the Nazis were met with adamant protests as by the citizens of Skokie, which sparked a Supreme Court case. National Socialist Party of America versus Village of Skokie, where the ACLU backed the Nazis. And they backed the Nazis in order to protect free speech. Despite this, and despite winning, the Nazis never marched, because the residents of Skokie probably would have fucked them up something fierce. And they would have. Well, at least that's my own interpretation, because as the protest footage showed them to be rightfully very angry, and when people are rightfully very angry, they bust some heads. And they're Nazis, who gives a shit about their feelings. Skokie, Nazis have no rights, Illinois. Oh boy. Something like this sends a ripple effect throughout a village. It changes its underlying culture, the internal policies of its government. It affects the ideologies of those who live through it. And it alters the education curriculum of its school districts. And as an example of this, when I was in 6th grade in 2006, my middle school dedicated a whole week to teaching my class why the Holocaust was one of the greatest tragedies in history. My class went to the old Main Street Holocaust Memorial Museum, because the current one off of Eden 6th Westway had not yet been built. They was built in 2009. My class saw a Holocaust survivor speak at the public library. By the way, Turkey Public Library, excellent library. Why do I keep unmeaning diatribes? I wrote a script for me to follow, but I can't follow it because I'm such an asshole. I like that. Oh boy. We watched films that express how dangerous Nazi rhetoric is, and a bunch of other stuff I'm probably forgetting. So Sergei made sure to emphasize that Nazis were the greatest evil of the 20th century. Good job on them. But what really helped sell the idea that Sergei was against Nazis, that Sergei was open to everyone, was how the village managed to endear a, by US standards, large non-white population. Based on the 2000 census data, only about 65.6% of the population was white, 21.28% was Asian, and while the black and Hispanic populations were only at 4.51% and 5.71% respectively, that at least meant that they were a pretty common sight. Over the past 20 years, these figures have grown even more diverse, with the 2020 census actually putting the non-Hispanic white population at under 50%, which, as a white person, I think is very cool. And now I need to flip over the paper. Paper, why are you like this? Why are you such a bastard? Okay, yep, I'm still on G. Okay, that's good. Yep, this is really fun now that knows about TSF comics, which has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about now. I just included as background element, even though you can only vaguely see the pictures, and most of them are really weird. Okay. Or in other words, Skirky's playset was pretty diverse by US standards back when I was a kid, and it's gotten even more diverse as time went on. Being in an environment like this shapes one's values, their views on race, and generally makes them more open when it comes to policies that evenly distribute rights along implicit or explicit racial lines. The implicit part is very important. Because a lot of conservatives mostly, I'm so bad at saying words sometimes. A lot of conservatives use euphemisms so that they aren't explicitly talking about race, but if you know, you know. But if you know they're talking about race, you know they're talking about race. But definitely don't make those stupid noises when you're being filmed, you dummy. Okay, goodness, I'm making myself sound like I can now sing a 3 when it comes to the topic of race, but really, I'm dumb when it comes to this topic, very dumb. And I've always been. Actually, here's an anecdote from, why do I keep doing that when I don't know what I'm going to say? I rely on you, paper. Help me. Actually, here's an anecdote to show just how dumb I am. Back when I was in elementary school, I made friends with a lot of kids. Well, okay, I said a lot of kids, then I listed the numbers and they aren't that much. Okay, 3 white kids, 3 black kids, 4 Asian kids, and 1 Assyrian kid. Yes, I counted them and I remembered them. Because I'm weird like that. But most of the time, I didn't actually understand what their race was. I thought the only racial feature was the color of one's skin, so I thought some Asian kids were black, and thought some Hispanic kids were Asian. Hell, I don't think I understood that Hispanic was an ethnic group until I was 14. That's how dumb I was. So I guess ignorant would be better than dumb, except that's a kind of good ignorant, because you don't view people on their race, because if you don't know what their race is, you can't really judge them on their race, maybe. I don't know. What's my point again? Right. I fundamentally do not understand how people wind up being against the freedom and safety of others. I do not understand this because of the environment I grew up in. Many of the things I consider innate and obvious are things that people living in the same country, state, and even county as me were not exposed to. My beliefs were based on reason, but I consider my beliefs to be based on reason. Very important distinction, because reason, I guess it's subjective now. Okay, reason, but how do you reason with someone who does not want to reason? With those who interpret the world in a way so different from you, you can barely hold a discussion with them. I don't know, and that scares me. Also, I feel I need to add two things. One, Skokie is my home. I'm always going to be biased toward it, and I do not have enough experience to compare it to other places. It's not perfect. There are scuzzballs in the community, same as anywhere else, but I think it offers an environment far more tolerant than those found in other communities across America. The phone is ringing again, not answering it. I'm almost done. Over 20 minutes, gosh darn. Two, I'm not Jewish. I went to Catholic school until I was about 7. My mother, father, and sister are not religious people, and neither am I. Religion has never been a significant part of my lifestyle. I felt I need to mention that because as I'm from Skokie, Skokie is largely Jewish, and a lot of people tend to assume that I was Jewish for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. Anyway, that closes things off for what has been the busiest week on Languagebox in quite a while. I need to clear my throat because I'm not used to talking this much. I felt the need to put out an update explaining where I was with the 10th anniversary goals. I put out my Kirby Discovery review, and I had a 2-part, 27,000-word essay as the main celebration, the essay that you can see scrolling down here, where this teenage boy is assaulting a teenage girl. Yes, of course, that's an image that I decided to post here. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have fun with it. So what's next for Languagebox? Well, I don't like to give schedules because promises are the big danger. I don't like breaking them. Breaking promises is very bad. But I'll throw down what I currently have queued on my docket. An annual re-review of Redreamer on June 3rd. Soon transfer scenario review Under the Skin by Kisara on June 8th. TSF series number 006-3 on June 23rd. Wait, does that have, I'm intending that to be pronounced -3. I mean, okay, 00063. I never thought about how you would actually pronounce that. Oh, bother. Okay, AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative review in early July. This is coming out in late June. At least in North America, Europe got delayed. Mighty review in late July, finally. TSF series number 14 in late July. To be determined student transfer review in July, to be determined student transfer review in August. TSF series is number 4-3. Well, I can't call it 4-3, that sounds strange. Whatever, 4-3 on August 31st. Okay, need to clear my throat again and adjust myself. Okay. To be determined student transfer scenario review in September. No idea when, just September. And I burped. Gosh darn. Natalie rambles about Regalia. Okay, Natalie rambles about Regalia Lost, the final, in September, ? End of service hasn't been announced. I don't know when I'm going to put that out. It needs to be shortly after end of service, but it's going to largely be complete beforehand, because that's how these things work. Okay. To be determined student transfer review in October. To be determined student transfer review in November. Novel number 7, The Dominance of Abigail Quinlan, on November 18th, my birthday, because I like putting out things on my birthday. Pokemon Violet review in early December. To be determined student transfer review in December. TSF series number 5-2 on December 21st. It will all be a Christmas special. Will it be about? I'm not going to tell you yet. Now the Rebels about 2022 on December 18th. On December 28th, not I don't like saying 2022 because it feels like you are accidentally repeating something. It's a bad year for the mouse. Okay, everything related to the schedule is subject to change due to many reasons, not limited to the fact that I don't know when new versions of Stream Transfer and Press Switch are going to be released, and my voice is cracking because I have been talking for too long. Oh bother. Yes, food, I'll have some water to finish this off. Yep, this is precisely the content that you paid for, and this is free, so you didn't pay for anything, so you can't get upset about it. Maybe. I don't know. Currently my biggest priority is actually the dominance of Abigail Quinlan. I outlined back in March, finally started writing it, and because I have time off work, my boss went on vacation without him. I can't work. He needs to give me work so I can do work. I've been actually 3,000 words a day writing goal, and seeing as how my novel is in the range of 80 to 90k words long, I should easily make my November 18th deadline while doing other stuff. Okay, ending line, film from Serbi.net, the best film site. That's all for now. Until next time, see ya. Bye. Bye. Oh dear. This was a mistake.